All right, so on this one, I got a question about on homework 77 and question 10. And I do agree that this one's a little bit more difficult, perhaps something you haven't quite seen before, right? But you're going to see that the process that I showed you on the notes on 77 is basically identical. You're just going to have to do it twice, right? So notice that on number 10, we're going to find the solution for the differential equation. So what that means, right? Let's make sure we understand what that means. When we're looking for the solution of a differential equation, is if they give us a derivative, we want to find y. So if they give us dy dx, we want to find y. In this case, they give us the second derivative, right? So we have to take two antiderivatives in order for us to get to the solution of the differential equation. So first, we're going to use something called separation of variables, which I'm not really sure that I talked about in 77. I think 78 talks about that extensively, but essentially, I'm just going to move the dx squared. Oops, I forgot to write my writing utensil here. Give me a minute. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to bring this dx squared to this side, right? So basically, I'm going to multiply both sides times dx squared. So what that's going to look like is this. Should I use a different color? No, let's just stick with black. So we have this, and all the terms are an x. All these are x terms, so therefore I don't have to do any trickery here. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the antiderivative of the left and then the right. Now the antiderivative of the left side is just going to give you dy. It's basically taking the antiderivative of the second derivative of y. Now on the right side, I have to take the antiderivative of this. Now the antiderivative of 3e to the x is just 3e to the x. If the power of the x had something different, then you would have to use substitution. But in this case, you don't. Now the antiderivative of sine is negative cosine. So this is going to be negative 5 cosine of x plus c. And yes, I know that I have a dx squared there. Don't worry about that, okay? So the reason they gave us the y prime of 0 is equal to 2, so we can find what c is in this case, right? So we're going to plug in 2 for this. And we're going to plug in a 0 for every x that we see in this equation. And then essentially we're going to solve for c, all right? Now the cosine of 0 is 1. So this is going to leave us with, well, this is going to be 3 minus 5 plus c. Okay, now 3 minus 5 is going to be negative 2. And if I add that negative 2 to the other side, I would get the c is equal to 4. Okay, so now notice that we have this equation right here, but instead of c, we're going to have a 4 now. Okay, so now we're going to do it all over again. We're going to take the antiderivative of this side. And we're going to take the antiderivative of this also. But instead of writing plus c, I'm going to write plus 4 dx. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and just do that all over again. So the antiderivative of this is y. So this is what it means to find the solution of a differential equation. We want to get to y. So the antiderivative of 3e to the x, well, that's just the same thing. The antiderivative of negative 5 cosine of x, the antiderivative of cosine is sine, all right? So this is not going to change the sign. It's going to stay the same. So even though I'm not with you physically, I'm with you, well, I would say in the spirit, but I'm really not. Even though I'm not there, you have to remember all of these trig antiderivatives. Plus 4x plus, we're going to call this d. You can call it any other letter that you like. I just don't want to get that confused with the letter c over there. Okay, so now we're going to use this part right here that you see here to find out what d is. All right, so we're going to write 1 is equal to 3 e to the 0 minus 5 sine of 0 plus 4 times 0. Well, that's not going to be a whole lot of fun here. Plus d. Okay, so notice that this right here, let's make sure I'm looking at my notes, make sure I'm not making any mistakes. That's going to be 0. This is going to be 0, so I don't really need that anymore. And e to the 0 is 1, right? So we have 1 is equal to 3 minus 5. So that's going to be, let's see. What do I have a 5 there? Oh, that was my mistake. Shouldn't be there. That's just 3 plus d. There's nothing else. The sign cancel. All right, so now d is going to be equal to -2. So my final answer, the solution to the differential equation. All right, so if you really think about it, there's nothing new here, right? I mean, I'm just calling it a different term, but it's important because it will use that terminology in the AP exam. So again, you want to write this, your final answer should be y is equal to 3 e to the x minus 5 sine of x plus 4x. And instead of writing plus d, we're going to replace that with a -2. And that's it for that. Well, I hope that helped. If that didn't, then contact me again. At worst, we can do a Zoom session where I can actually talk to you face to face. And then after that, and if that doesn't work, then I guess we're screwed. All right. Anyway, well, I guess we'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.
Just listening to you, I want to kill myself.